Hi everyone, Grant for the Flame Learning channel. With the continued enhancement of the animation editor, here are 7 improvements that have been introduced to animation with the release of Flame 2023.1. Starting off the enhancements is making it easier for you to reset a channel without having to memorize a keyboard shortcut. So if you have a channel with animation or even one with an adjustment, you can call up the context menu and reset the channel from here. In addition to resetting any channel, all the delete options are now available without having to go into the animation editor. So if you shift and click a channel to select it and navigate to a particular keyframe, you can call up the context menu and either delete the current keyframe as before, or you can delete all the keyframes before or after the frame you are on. When working with the animation editor, it is possible to have keyframes beyond the length of the setup. This could happen if you're moving keyframes or resizing an animation. There is nothing wrong with this, and you can easily manage your keyframes. However, a new visual indication has been added to the animation editor, which gives you a clear view as to where your setup begins and where your setup ends. These are called the range indicators, and they help you ensure your keyframes fall within the correct timings of the setup. You can turn them on or off using the gear menu. But now there is no guesswork to identify the range of your setup. If you are in batch and adjust the duration, the range indicators will adjust accordingly. If you are looking at an animation of a timeline effects, the range indicators will only show the length of the segment, even if you're looking at the timeline range in the time bar. This eliminates any second guessing when managing your keyframes within a set range. Another indication enhancement in the animation editor has to do with the channel list. So when you have a channel with animation, the channel now uses the same indicators as the channel sliders to highlight animation in the channel. The yellow line underneath the channel indicates a keyframe at the current frame, and the blue line indicates an animation on the channel, but there is no keyframe at the current frame. This is a big improvement in being able to identify animated channels in the channel list without having to filter the channels. As a small mention, expressions will still be indicated by the E icon, and we'll talk about some of its improvements later in the video. When working with keyframes in the animation editor, you can select a keyframe and move it around. However, if you want to select a bunch of keyframes, you can hold Ctrl and drag a box selection around the keyframes. This works fine in most instances. However, if there are any unselected curves in the animation editor, they will be automatically selected, and so will their keyframes within the box selection. An alternative approach is to use the range selection to only include keyframes from a selected channel. This is not new to Flame, and it's a great tip to memorize. The improvement to this tool is how the range is now displayed when you perform the selection. So pressing Ctrl and F, you can select a range of time, and any keyframes on the selected channel will be selected, and unselected channels will be ignored. As a reminder, when working in the animation editor, you are able to set keyframes in the animation editor, even if the folders containing the channels are collapsed. So you could select a collapsed folder like this one and set a keyframe. When you expand the channels, all the channels now will have a keyframe. So you never had to dig down in the animation editor to add keyframes to a collection of channels. However, you may or may not have noticed is that the curves are always being displayed even when the folders are collapsed. This is new to this release of the Flame products. So you don't have to go digging just to see a curve. This works in combination with an option in the gear menu called Show Curves from Selected Channels. This is enabled by default, and when a channel is selected, its curve will be seen in the animation editor, even if the folders are collapsed. If this option is off, then you will always see every channel curve, selected or not. When 2023 was launched a while back, the animation editor went through a revamp which included a new way to filter channels. Based on your feedback, we've made a few additions. Firstly, you have a new filter to show both animated and selected channels. This massively cuts down time having to switch between the separate animated and selected filtering. In addition to this, if you look at the set criteria for this filtering preset, you will note that expressions and audio is also included. This ensures you have a rounded view of all your animated channels within the composite. This is also helped by a new function in the filter criteria. When the operator is set to OR, a channel must have at least one of these criteria to be included in the filtering. And when the operator is set to AND, a channel has to have all the defined criteria in order to be included in the filtering. The OR and AND operator is automatically displayed in the preset naming to help you identify what it is doing. Finally, one other useful tweak to the filtering criteria has to do with filtering by name. Previously, you could only filter by a channel name, like X and Y for example. In 2023.1, the naming has been extended to the channel folders. For example, you can create a filter preset that filters by animation and looks for any folder with light in the name. Don't forget to add a wildcard to include additional text in the name. The folders and channels need to meet all the criteria using the AND operator. With the filter enabled, there is a light folder containing the animated channels. The last improvement you'll cover in this video is some small expression enhancements. Firstly, linking channels is available either via the context menu or button in the interface. For example, you could take the rotation of this channel and link it to the rotation of this 3D object. That all works as expected, but it's not new. New to this release of Flame is a set of functions that can be used when linking a channel. These are also available via the context menu or button in the interface. For instance, linking to the same channel, you could negate the animation. So one object rotates in one direction, and the other object rotates in the opposite direction. Or you could link to the channel and choose to multiply the animation. You get a pop-up calculator to set the multiply value. Looking at the result, the linked object is rotating at twice the speed. Finally, you'll note the expression at the bottom left of the animation editor. To edit the expression, you could click the expression button on the right of the interface. Or you can now double-click on the expression icon and adjust the expression accordingly. For all the updates and changes to the animation editor, please refer to the What's New documentation. Please subscribe to the Flame Learning channel and click the bell to be notified for future videos. Comments, feedback, and suggestions are always welcome and appreciated. And thanks for watching.